Hey guys, Kevin here for the mid-season finale of the Vampire Diaries, Season 7, Episode 9, Cold as Ice. And like the originals, I really didn't know what this episode was going to be, but mainly because they basically gave us everything they should have had in this finale in last week's episode. So I really didn't know what this was going to be. All the originals, it was more of just, so much happened, and they left so much open that I really didn't know what was going to happen because of unpredictable this is. This season of the Vampire Diaries really hasn't been that unpredictable at all. In fact, I mean, the only unpredictable twist we got is the thing with Caroline. That's the only thing. And it shouldn't shock you guys that I really was not that fond of this episode. In fact, this was probably my least favorite episode this season because barely anything happened in this episode. This really felt more like an epilogue, I have to say. I mean, it was a very, very dry episode. Now, don't get me wrong. There were some scenes that I really enjoyed in this episode. But overall, this did not feel like a mid-season finale at all. It just felt like another episode. It did not feel like a mid-season finale. If anything, last week's episode felt like a mid-season finale, just because it was a lot more interesting. This felt very much just like the mid-season opener. That's what this felt like. When the show comes back, I kind of feel like it should have ended last week and then have this episode be the mid-season opener. Now, I understand this episode was during Christmas, but overall, I found this episode to be quite boring, I have to say. I really was not that into it. Starting with the flash forward, I mean, this was probably the laziest flash forward we've had. I mean, this was just, I don't know what the point of this was. I found it to be very one note, and it was not that important at all. Basically, we start 3 years from now in Chicago with Valerie telling Stefan not to go. He says he won't let her have a third, and she says if he's hurt, she'll rain down hell or whatever does it. He kisses her tenderly, leaves to help Damon. Literally, all this tells us is that him and Valerie are together. That's it. That's all we get, and I'm kind of sick of these flash forwards. I mean, at first they were very interesting, but now they're really just giving us stuff that we don't need to know. I mean, all this stuff that we're finding out, I don't need to know that Stefan and Valerie are together. I don't need to know this right now. And my worry, like I've told you guys, is that I'm worried that these flash forwards are going to amount to nothing, and that we're gonna see everything before we actually get to that point, and I'm very worried about that. So Lily's coffin is borne by Damon Stevin to the cemetery where a grave waits ready, and Valerie and Nora are there, and she says Julian and Mary Louise are gone and haven't been seen for days, and Beau isn't there either. A lot of them are obviously very affected by Lily's death, and Stefan says that they should say something. Damon scoffs, and Nora says she loved her mother when she was a girl, but she rejected her when she found out Nora could siphon power. She says Lily showed her a mother's love and thanks her, and, I really liked this funeral scene, I will say. I thought this was a very good scene. But again, this really felt like a mid-season opener scene. It really did feel that way. So Valerie steps up next, says Lily knew her at brightest and darkest, and she says Lily always saw the best in her and says she'll be missed. Stefan says those are the old vows. They sure look, and Valerie and Nora leave them with their mother. Stefan asks Damon how many times that you get a second chance to deliver your mother's eulogy, and Damon said that she was a terrible mother alive and dead, and then tells Stefan that that does feel good, and he walks away, and it's just good to get those words out. And I thought that was a good scene for Damon. This is very cathartic for Damon. He's always wanted to say this to his mother. He did get to say that to her, but he just wants to remember her that way. He doesn't want to remember her in a positive way. He wants to remember her as a terrible mother because she really wasn't a good mother. So he walks away, and now it's just Stefan. He opens the lid and lays a flower on his mother's hands. He says he's sorry, promises to make it right, and he closes the coffin. So it's Christmas time in the bar at the college, and Caroline is definitely showing. You can tell that now that she's having, baby, she definitely is showing. Plus, Candace Acola is pregnant in real life, so there's that. Stefan talks to her on the phone, and she says to focus on the hunt for Julian, and says she's good there. Caroline's distracted listening to Blood in Her Neck, and Stefan rants that Damon has to stop at every pub, and Damon's drinking from a reindeer mug. Caroline ends the call. Bonnie asks Caroline about her eating habits. She mixed marshmallows and blood, and Alara comes over to take Caroline to Lamaze class, and that's how uneventful this episode is. Literally, most of the scenes with Caroline take place in this Lamaze class. That is how uneventful this was, honestly. I mean, when you get a mid-season finale and a lot of it takes place in Lamaze class, that's when you know it's really not that interesting of an episode. So she has a stack of books, leaves Bonnie in charge of the toys for Tots Drive, and Damon asks Stefan if he's going to be Uncle Stefan to the babies, and Stefan reminds him that the babies aren't Caroline's, and Damon says that Caroline will never hand over the babies and walk away, which we know is true. We know that Caroline is eventually going to walk away from Stefan because she's going to go to Alaric, but right now, at least, they think that Caroline is going to give the babies to them. Now, that is very interesting, I will say that. Thing is, though, there's not much suspense here because we know she's going to go with Alaric. That's a lot of my problems right now, is that a lot of what's suspenseful really isn't that suspenseful because we know what's coming. The fact that we saw these flash forwards have actually been a problem now because now we know what's coming. We know what's going to happen, and I don't want to see how we get to those flash forwards because I know what happens in those flash forwards. I know that Bonnie and Enzo are going to get together. I know that Caroline and Alaric are going to get married, and that this is going to happen to them. I know that Stefan and Caroline are going to break up. I know that something terrible is going to happen to Stefan and Damon. I know all this stuff is going to happen, so it really doesn't leave me on the edge that much. And now I know that Stefan and Valerie are going to get together. So other than that, I'm not as interested as I want to be, I have to say. And I wish I was, but just because they've shown these flash forwards, now at least it's really making me very, like, feel like, oh, I know what's gonna happen, so why should I care? That really is what's making me feel at this point. So Damon says Stefan barely missed being a father again, and Stefan says he's not funny. Darren reminds Stefan he needs him since Julian is old and powerful. Damon says he's there to help and says he has grenades and vervain syringes stashed all over him. And at the Salvatore house, Valerie comes inside and looks around. Mary Louise is there and says Julian isn't there. Valerie says she just came to pick up her things, and Mary asks if she's seen Nora, and she tells Valerie this is all her fault. She thinks Valerie is lying still, and that Valerie is basically trying to lie to them. She doesn't trust her. And I do like this conflict between Mary Louise and Nora. Like I said, I think this is making things a bit more interesting between them. Just having Mary Louise be more trusting of Julian while Nora's not at all. That's very interesting. I like the way that's being written. And the fact that Mary Louise isn't really trusting Valerie is very interesting. And the thing I like about it is that these are two characters that we don't know what happens to them in the flash forwards. So at this point, honestly, I'm invested in their stuff. I want to be invested. I know you guys are saying, oh, you haven't been invested. I'm honestly starting to get a bit invested, and I like that. I want to get interested in their characters, and I think they're writing them quite well, I have to say. They're trying to make them more interesting. I don't think they're as interesting as they could be yet, but they're definitely getting there. They're getting to the point where they could be very interesting, and I like the way they're writing that. Definitely really good stuff there. So, Mary Louise says that even if it's the truth, the timing is suspect and says she saved the story until it served her. Valerie says that she was wrong about Mary Louise being the nice one, says Nora will blossom without her. And I like that Valerie's just trying to say, look, you need to trust me because, Nora trusts me or not. This is just very interesting. So Mary glares. Nora's there at the toy drive, and Bonnie asks why she's there. She has a toy to donate and hands it over. Bonnie says the end. Nora asks how the child would know of the toys from her, and then says that she enrolled in class and wants to be more involved. And I like the bonding between Nora and Bonnie in this episode. I mean, they're both going through a lot. They both lost, they both are kind of separated right now. They're both kind of alone, and I like seeing that. So she says Mary Louise would never let her go to college. Bonnie calls her an evil fanatic, but then relents and lets her help as long as she's far away across the room. My only thing with Bonnie is that she really has had nothing to do ever since that whole incident with Joe, and not being Joe. Other than that, Bonnie hasn't really had much to do and really hasn't had much of an arc this season. I want her to have more to do. Reason is because one, Kat Graham is a very good actress. I really think she's a great actress. One of the best actresses on the show by far. And I really love her character. She's definitely one of my favorite characters. Two, scenes like this really shows that Bonnie we need a lot more Bonnie, and things like this is really good. So Bonnie calls her an evil fanatic, but then relents. I just read this. Damon tells Stefan that him helping kill Julian is his Christmas gift. They are in Sunbury where the locator spell pointed. They head to a pub and find dead revelers, and Damon says they found him. Stefan is mad they lingered and didn't catch them. Damon says they need backup so the guy doesn't kill them, and Stefan says the wounds are fresh. Damon calls Bonnie, and she says he always calls when he needs something. He asks if she can zoom in on the locator spell. She says nope. He says Stefan is being crazy and says maybe she can help. She promises to text, and Damon then hangs up and then says he's calling, and Caroline's being a teacher's pet at the birthing class and annoying people, and the instructor seems tired of her too, and I'm just like, are we back to, season 1 Caroline? This was really... Honestly, Caroline was annoying in this episode. I'm not gonna lie, you guys. Caroline was being a bit annoying. Alar gives her a small smile, says she knows he thinks she's hormonally crazy. I understand that she's having a baby, obviously, and that she's going a bit crazy because of that. I didn't really find it funny, though. I just found it a bit annoying. I really did. I mean, Caroline as a character, I really haven't been loving. I've not been loving what they're doing with her character. I like the way they've been writing her character. It's just, in this episode, I really was not fond of her character, because she really doesn't have much to do in this episode, minus one scene that I really loved. So she says having a baby is a gift and spouts off some inane baby book quotes. And Caroline hears people talking about how she's pregnant and is a student and he's a professor. And they doubt her good grades. And Caroline gets mad and starts to vamp out. And Alark reins her in. And I like that this was getting to her. I like seeing that. But again, we know it's just her hormones. And it really isn't that intense because, again, we know nothing bad is going to happen here. We know that Caroline and Alark are going to get together. And you definitely do see them setting it up pretty well. I will say that they're doing a good job of doing it. Is it still creepy? Yes, it's still weird, okay? Whatever you can do whatever you can, but this is still very strange that Caroline and Lark are going to get together. Just because of the fact that even though he is the father of a child, technically he is the father of a child, I understand that. I just find it weird, I really do. So Bonnie comes to Nora, makes small talk. She gives her advice on professor selection. Bonnie makes nice, and Nora asks if she's being a pity friend, then asks what she needs. Bonnie asks if she's heard of a town called Sunbury, and Stefan and Damon talk, and of course that's where Stefan and Damon are. So they're talking about Lily, and then Julian shows up at the bar. He looks drunk and says he lost his cell phone. Julian says he lost the love of his life and says Lily meant everything to him. He gets angry, then pulls out the sword, and he says if the stone was in the sword, it would have been punished them by sending them into a personal hell based on their literary of sins. He says he spent 100 years in there and Lily saved him. Julian says Lily was the only thing that kept him sane, and I would agree that. I mean, Lily was the one that tried to stop him from killing and stop him from going crazy. And now that Lily's gone, he can be the way he wants to be. I kind of feel like Lily was holding him back in a way because, he was the one that didn't want to change. Lily wanted to change and he didn't. And not having that storyline has kind of made Julian not as interesting, honestly. Julian is not that great of a villain. I will definitely say that. He's really not that great. And it's mainly because we've just seen better villains on this show as a whole. And plus, most of what we're seeing of these heretics, they're not really villains. Nora's not a villain anymore. Valerie's not a villain anymore. So they're really not that threatening. I mean, all we really have is Mary Louise and Beau. They're not that threatening, I have to say. I mean, they could have made them threatening, but they're just not. I did not find them that interesting because Lily's gone. The person that we thought was going to be the head of all this and the villain is gone, and now it's just not interesting. I mean, I don't feel like we have a real villain here and a real threat. So, Bonnie tells Nora about Stefan and Damon and she says those towns he's been going are places he used to live. She says Stefan and Damon need to get away now. Other vampires come in and surround Stefan and Damon as Julian begins to laugh maniacally. Julian introduced them to the other vampires from the 1600s, the 1800s, and newer, and Julian says he knows they've been following him, and he asks if it's for nefarious reasons. Stefan says it's just to kill him, and Stefan refuses to back down. Damon says plan B. He lights a match which sends the alcohol-soaked bar into flames. He then zips Stefan out at top speed, and Bonnie and Nora are bringing gifts to sick kids when Mary Louise shows up, and Alark gives Caroline a blood bag, and he grabs a beer, and she worries blood might be bad for the babies, and he says it's fine, but Caroline's freaking out. He tells her it's a miracle, she's made him so happy. She turns on him with vampires, she slams him against the wall, she normalizes and rushes out, and again, I just didn't care. I did not care about this scene at all. Because we know the babies are going to be fine, we know they're going to have them, and we know that Alark and Caroline get together, so I just didn't care. So Mary Louise asks Nora if Nora's going to apologize. Nora says no. Mary Louise says this isn't Julian's fault, and this scene I actually really liked, I have to say. I mean, I haven't been loving their characters. I actually really like this scene, guys, I have to tell you. I mean, I really felt like this is a couple that is actually having a problem, and this didn't feel stupid. I mean, this is a genuine problem. One of them trusts Julian, one of them doesn't, and that's definitely a big problem here. So Nora says that Julian's a liar. Mary Louise asks if she agrees they can go home together. Nora tells her that she's done with her, and Mary Louise accuses her of waiting to dump her for a long time. Nora says that Mary Louise is too scared to live differently. Nora asks when was the last time she did charity. Mary Louise says when she started dating Nora. She walks out, and I don't care they broke up because I never really cared about the relationship as a whole. All we've gotten so far is that, oh, you're too sexy, or, oh, we haven't really gotten a lot from them. Again, I would care about their characters if they would have done stuff like this from the start and less of, oh, you just look too sexy. That was never interesting to me. That was just whatever. I didn't really care about this. This I actually do care about. Problem is they just broke them up way too soon, and now that they've broke them up, right, when things are getting interesting, I don't really care. They can make these two characters a lot more interesting now they've broken them up, though, individually. I mean, the way they're going with Nora, I really like. The way they're going with Mary Louise, I really do like. I think I'm definitely going to start to like their characters more. I will definitely say that. So Damon tells Stefan they have to go home. Stefan says Julian is building an army. Stefan and Damon argue about Lily, and Damon has had enough. He says he's going home after Stefan calls him spoiled for being cruel to Lily on her deathbed. And I do like this dividing between Stefan and Damon, the way they feel about Lily. You know, Stefan feels that they should care about Lily and be a bit more sympathetic, while Damon doesn't want to give her sympathy because she never really was a good mother to him, while she kind of was to Stefan, if you think about it. With Damon, he kind of sees her as just someone that gave him, that just wanted stuff from him and things like that, and he doesn't really trust her, while Stefan does. That's, I find, very interesting, and that I really like. So Stefan calls Valerie and says Damon bailed on him. She says she's sick of everyone giving him a pass. He says they can still end this and asks if she's seen Mary Louise. Stefan finds Mary Louise at the college bar and says it looks like she can use a friend. Valerie knocks her out with a syringe of her vein. Stefan says make sure she stays put till Julian is dead. Bonnie finds Nora crying in the dorm room, and Nora says that Mary Louise called her a charity case, and Bonnie asks what she sees in Mary Louise. And I do like what Nora says, because it is a good question. Why is she with Mary Louise if she suddenly doesn't trust her? And she says that she's loving, protective, and kind. Bonnie says just to her. Nora says it's nice having one person that just loves you and doesn't ask anything of you. And I kind of saw this as that's why Bonnie and Enzo get together, because Enzo hasn't asked her for anything. Enzo's been nice to her. Enzo just cares about her, and I really feel that's kind of why Bonnie and Enzo are going to get together, because they both had people that don't really care about them. I mean, let's face it, Damon at this point just asks Bonnie for favors. They're supposed to be friends, and all he is doing is asking Bonnie for favors, and it's sad because I love their friendship, but they really haven't had too much in a while, and most now it's just him asking her for favors. And Nora thinks Bonnie says she's kind and beautiful. Nora gets a text from Julian saying they've taken Mary Louise hostage. Nora says she was wrong and Bonnie isn't kind at all. She knocks Bonnie out with magic. Damon sits drinking when Julian shows up. And why did Nora think this was Bonnie's fault? I don't understand. So Damon sits drinking when Julian shows up. He asks where she is. Damon says who. Julian says he got a text from Stefan, but it's the first Damon didn't know it. He threatens Damon with a sword, and Damon says he has no beef with him and says he didn't kill his baby and doesn't care about Lily dying. Julian says he knew Lily's love for her sons would kill him, and Damon says her love didn't exist. Julian says he wants to think that to make himself feel better. Julian attacks and goes to stab him with a sword. Stefan defends him. Julian zips out the window, and then we get the best scene with Caroline. This scene I really love. She goes to Liz's grave, and she says it sucks to have her first Christmas without her, and if you remember, just a season ago, this was the episode where we found out that Liz had cancer and that she was probably going to die. So that really makes the scene very effective. Just because it's, one, it's the first Christmas she's had without Liz. Two, it's been a year since she found out that Liz had the tumor. And she says she got her two somethings, babies, and Caroline says that she's pregnant. She says she imagined being a human carrying her mom's grandchildren. Caroline says she knows they're not hers, but are still a responsibility. She says she has no idea what she's doing, but she wants to do it right. And you really see her as just wanting to help out her mother and kind of do this as, a present for her mother and doing this because of her mother. She says she wishes Liz was there to answer questions and says she misses her so much. And that really is true. Caroline doesn't have Liz, and this is something where she wants Liz there, but she can't have her. Now, that makes things very interesting, and I really love that, and Candace Cole, I think, really nailed in that scene. Very good stuff from her there. So Julian's in front of the fire, calls it his house. He says he can take them both. They both attack, and he fights them off. He snaps Damon's wrist and headbutts him. They brawl. Julian has a sword aimed at Damon. He says he would have killed him on sight if not for Lily. Damon comes at Julian again to stop him from taking Stefan, and Julian stabs Damon with the enchanted sword, and Stefan tries to revive Damon, who looks to be dead. He's perfectly still and bloody, and we know that Damon's not gonna die because we saw him in the flash forward. So this isn't very threatening or even that intense. I really didn't care. So Valerie is literally babysitting Mary Louise, who's out cold. She hears a noise and sees Mary Louise's body is gone. And Caroline shows up as Stefan sits by Damon's body. He says Damon told him to let him go, and he should have, but couldn't. Caroline says it was his mom, and that's hard to let go, she knows. She says she was just in her mom's grave, and Caroline says they need to figure out a way to save him. Caroline tries to call Bonnie, who's still out. She starts to wake, but is still out of it. He says Damon won't make it in there. He tells her the Phoenix Stone punishes you for every bad thing you've ever done. And this I found very interesting. I definitely like seeing this. Basically, he says he can't imagine what Damon's going through. And Damon is picturing himself in the Civil War. He's on the battlefield of Civil War, has been gunshot, and he looks at the death and carnage around him. Basically, the Phoenix Stone basically reminds you of the worst times in your life, and one of the worst things that Damon ever had to go through was the Civil War. Obviously, he feels very bad for all the people he had to kill and him getting, getting shot at. Obviously, very hard for him to relive, and that I find interesting. I do like finding out what this Phoenix Stone is doing. Maybe that's what's causing him to see Lily. That I think is interesting because we know he's seeing Lily in the flash forwards, but she's not actually there. Maybe that's because of the Phoenix Stone. That very much is what could be going on there. So he sees men being shot down and blown up around him. Caroline says Damon can survive this. Nora shows up and says he'll be different just like you. She stabs Stefan with the enchanted sword too, and now both brothers are in the Hell Dimension, and that's basically how this episode ends. So again, not really a mid-season finale. Definitely an episode, but not a mid-season finale. It didn't really feel that way at all. It just felt like it was just an episode to go off on, see in January. I don't care. I honestly don't care that we have to wait till January. I really don't care. The originals got it right, definitely. The originals got it right in the sense that they gave us all we need to see before, before they went on mid-season finale. It was very intense. The stakes are very high. And here they really weren't, just because of the flash forwards. I didn't really care a lot about what happened in this episode. Now, they are making Nora and Mary Louise much more interesting, but I don't like that Nora's suddenly evil and that she's suddenly gone to the dark side and suddenly doesn't trust any of them. I don't understand it. It just feels weird, and it feels just very much a plot device just to get them in peril. It really feels like that to me. Now, I do think it's interesting that they're stuck in this Phoenix Stone. It's making them relive the worst times of their life. What is Stefan going to relive? Is he going to remember Elena? Is he going to remember, maybe Mary Louise? I mean his stuff with, Valerie. I mean, what is it exactly he's going to remember? We'll have to see what happens there. That could definitely be very interesting. I like the scene with Caroline talking to Liz. I thought that was really great. I like the Bonnie and Nora and Bonnie have, but now it's gone. It's over, and that's really sad because that was one of my favorite parts of this episode. Just their bonding overall, I really like. Anything with Bonnie, I really like. I just really like her character. And Nora, Mary Louise, they can make them interesting, but at this point now they just feel like plot devices, and that doesn't really make characters interesting. A plot device is just that. It's a way to get a character from point A to point B. That's not characters. To me, Nora and Mary Louise are not characters. They're plot devices, and that's all at this point that they're being. Julian is not threatening at all at this point. I don't care about his character because he doesn't have Lily. Lily is what made him what humanized him, what didn't just make him this character that has no emotions whatsoever. I mean, honestly, yes, he is dealing with Lily's death, but I don't care because Lily was the most interesting part about this, and now they've killed her, and it's made things very, very boring. So, overall, guys, really not much to talk about. This season overall, I really have not been that fond of. It started off really strong, I will say that, but ever since, I'd say probably episode 7, it's gotten very, very bland, and I really hope it gets its act together because it could be very interesting, but now it's just starting to get very repetitive. There's a flash forward, and then we get to the actual episode, nothing really happens, and this is a very good example of that. Yes, there's stuff that happened towards the end, but again, it just felt like it was a cliffhanger for us to to get to January. That's all it felt like. It didn't really feel like the stakes were high. It didn't really feel like that's where we were going, and I really just want Julian to die because I'm not really liking him as a villain, I have to say. But overall, guys, let me know what you guys thought of this finale. I was very disappointed, but I don't really have much to say about it. Just like The Flash, very underwhelming. The Flash was actually a good episode, though, because The Flash doesn't need all this stuff to happen to have a good episode. The Vampire Diaries does. It needs a lot of events. It's in a lot of problems this season, and it really has been a very mixed season. It could have been a lot. It can be a lot better. It can get better, definitely, but it really has not been working as well as I thought it was going to, and it's very disappointing. But let me know what you guys saw of this episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this season overall, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for a trailer reaction, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.